handsome Billy West.
Hi. The panel I did yesterday had 3 mics and none of them worked. So I was like, you know, oh, for a muse of fire that would ascend the brightest heaven of invention. You know, doing like fake Shakespeare and stuff. Because you gotta shout out everything. But I don't have to do it with these. I'm glad you're here. I'm really glad to see you guys. I love being here and I enjoy meeting and chatting it up with everybody. Met a bunch of great people today. And I was watching, I stayed up too late, I was watching this horse shit that was going on in Germany. Not the kids, not the people protesting, the summit. Yeah. The antics, just the body languages and the antics between this one and that one, mostly our friend, you know, our pal. We had a great meeting, it was great, it was fun. It was very, very, very good. You know what? It's like it's all pronouns. You know, it's like all pronouns in search of antecedents. You know, it's one thing does not lead to the other. And I don't know. I sound like that right now. Yeah, I had a really great run with a bunch of cartoons that I got to do, and very lucky to work with the people that I had wound up working with, and all the voice people that I know, you know, we're all friends, just don't have time to socialize, but I always want that. So I'll create a project of my own just so I can get them to come in and I can watch, you know. Yeah, because that's a strange feeling to walk into a room full of genius performers and you're not, if somebody is like doing unbelievable, you're rooting them on. You're not resentful of them because they're like we're all trying to keep the bar off the ground, you know. And then they bring in a celebrity to do a voice, and oh, you have the luxury of doing your own voice for every character. That's great. But yeah, let's see. I started out. I was in bands. I was a musician. I hated school. I figured it out like in the 4th grade, when and the hour I would graduate from high school. Every day I was like, another 15 minutes went by. And then it's the end of the day. I mean, I had these like meticulous ADHD type notes, OCD notes, which I had both of them. You know, it was, it's not recognizable and it wasn't treatable to have like chronic low-level depression from birth. I just never knew it. I just thought that everything just seemed to be so hard to do, and to talk to people seemed so hard. I didn't want to leave the shower, you know. Even as an adult, until I was 50 and I got treated for depression, I talked to this woman. Women have always been my best teachers, and she was a psychotherapist. And she would ask me about my day. What do you do? What do you do in your day? I said, I wake up, and everything seems to be okay, and then I take a deep, staggered breath, thinking about something that happened 33 years ago. You know, like it just happened. And I'd be like staggered breathing, and I always felt like the sword of Damocles was hanging. I don't know why. There was no reason in the world to feel that way, but I always kind of did. And she said, now, okay, then what else? I would go in the shower, and everything would be okay, and then this black cloud would just push me down to the floor where I was in the corner of the shower, like, you know, I can't go out. And I really felt like I couldn't go out. But what got me out of there was knowing I could go to this place that had a proscenium, you know, in a manner of speaking, like the theater, or a voiceover studio, where they were recording, you know, stuff that drove me crazy when I was a kid, the stuff that inspired me. I always say I put the Three Stooges into everything that I do. There's always something from the Three Stooges, because they used to show them every morning before I went to school. And I stopped going to church. I found my saints, you know? Why you know? And so many things I did have like stooge stuff in it. Like if someone's sleeping, it doesn't matter what cartoon, I'd always go. You can go back and listen. They say, okay, you're all snoring, you're all asleep, and I'd throw that in. Let's see, the show Ren and Stimpy. Stimpy the Cat.
Hey, Ren, will you button me?
Will you shut up, you fool! I shall kill you! Thank you. Thank you. It's been a while. So, Stimpy the Cat, I worked on a show called Beanie and Cecil in 1988. It was a revival of the old one, and that's where I met John Cristofalusi, and he was directing this. And I did Cecil the Seasick Sea Serpent, but there was so much infighting going on at that time with the Action for Children's Television. They were protecting children. You know, this is the group that was responsible for like editing Josie and the Pussycat cartoons because one of the girls threw her cat in a bowl of spaghetti. You know, that has to be cut out. And you're like, why? Because we don't want any people watching this, any kids watching this and throw their cat in a bowl of spaghetti. And I'm like, what are you protecting them from? A plastic piece of paper that's got hand drawings on it and a giant light underneath it and it's being filmed in repetition. You know, that's what you're scared of. But it was like a power grope, you know, just a lot of people wanted to get empowered, so you frighten everybody to death, and then everybody goes, well, what do you suggest, you know? It's like, I will tell you what's bad for kids and what isn't. You set yourself up as the arbitrator, you know, the arbiter of what's bad and good. And on Ren and Stimpy, we had a standards and practices person who was an alcoholic nun. You know, she had no agenda, you know. I mean, it was like, I could picture Glenn Close, you know, just coming up out of the bathtub. You can't say that in the cartoon! And, but we did, you know, we got away with so much because she and a few others were looking for disparaging images about women. So they could go, look, no bods, no cleavage, none of that. And so they threw in the gayest stuff they could. You know, it'd be like, you know, if they were under the mistletoe, you know, Ren would look up and Stimpy would look up and they'd twinkle eyelashes at each other. They were so busy looking for what they were gonna come down on us for that they missed all the like half-naked Chippendales dancers, you know, showcasing something on game shows, you know, with the bow tie. And you know, and then one day they came out of their coma and they were like, ah! You know, because they couldn't do anything about it. But it did deliver them Christmas, I mean, as far as success goes. I was also on the other show that they did in 1991 called Doug, who was a...
Well, he's a painfully shy 11-and-a-half-year-old, and this is my dog Pork Chop. And, oh, here comes my nemesis, my enemy in the wild, Roger. That's right, Funny! Hey, loser! How are ya? I'm running for office, so vote for this!
Now I'm going to do something sacrilegious, and I know you'll probably get emotionally scarred, but that was 25 years ago, and I'm picturing, what if, you know, sometimes they think about bringing back a show that was from 25 years ago, and they should be 25 years older, you know, and
did you know, today, I blew up a courthouse.
you know, you thought he'd be the one to, like, you know, become like an alderman or a, you know, representative or a senator, and sometimes it don't work out that way. And Roger was the judge that sent him to jail.
There's 2 counts of everything against you, so go to jail! Loser!
You know, just a fantasy. I mean, my whole world was that. I hated school, and, you know, I had all this junk going on in my head. I used to run around. I was a freak. I was Touretting out voices and making noises, and everybody was like, "Can you not do that? Can you shut up?" I was an annoyance, you know. I just wouldn't. I was like a little entertainment machine. I learned how to play guitar. Every time I go try to play a piano, they'd slam the lid. "Can you not do that?" You know, and I felt stifled. I felt like I was being like squeezed to death because I couldn't express myself. And that's really why I wanted to be in the business I'm in. Is I wanted to be a contributor so bad. I wanted to come up with things that I thought that the people who hired me would love, you know. And you give them, I would always give them way more than they ever expected. And every character, I put 1,000% of myself into it. I deliberate hard and long about every character before I dared open my mouth. You know, you think about what they look like. Futurama was like that. I was called in to audition for all these characters except Fry. And and I just did what I thought. They showed me a picture of the professor, and I thought he'd be rickety. They said he was 147 years old, so he probably farted dust, you know. So, I mean, I played it like that. I was physically shaking, which is a no-no in voiceover, but I was looking. Yeah. And I would go, "Good news, everyone! Bad news." Counting the liver spots. Yeah, and then they showed me a picture of Zoidberg, and I thought, well, geez, you know, he's big, and he'd be portly, so he must have a low kind of voice. But I thought, geez, you know, sometimes when you play against type and you make a voice come out of something that you never expected because of the way he looked, you know, you could do like a high little voice or something. But that wasn't the way to go. I looked at his face, and he had all that junk hanging off his face. You know, and I thought, well, it'd be really hard to talk, you know. So I gave him a marble mouth, like a couple of people in show business periphery. One was Lou Jacoby. He was in the first Arthur movie, and he was the guy that leaned into Arthur and went, "What's it like to have all that money?" You know, it doesn't suck. And there was this other guy in vaudeville, like before there was TV, there were 12 acts that would play all day in a theater. You could pop in anytime you wanted and pay, you know, 25 cents and stay all the long time that you wanted to. And he was like a toast guy, you know. When he'd come out and go, "You know the definition of a smart ass? A fellow that can sit on an ice cream cone and tell you what flavor it is." And so I cold fused the two of those birds, you know. It's like super collided them. And so you come up with like a Zoidberg, you know. "You need an autograph? Why not Zoidberg? Why not Zoidberg? Your music is bad and you should feel bad." Thanks. But you know, it's like, the thing that I thought was the funniest about that character was that he was a doctor and he was poor. I was like, I've never met a poor doctor in my whole effing life. You know, and he wore sandals. And he would insinuate himself into every situation, like if a bunch of people said, "Let's go to that great restaurant. Come on, everybody." "Zoidberg could eat." And I know that feeling, you know. I've been in that situation a few times. Like, "Hey, wait for me." The little kid with the big kids running around. And then, let's see. There was Zapp Branigan was a character. Now, when I lived in New York, I got a phone call. I was coming home from Manhattan. I lived outside of town, and my wife called me and she said, "Guess who just called here looking for you?" I said, "Who?" She said, "Phil Hartman." And I said, "Geez, you know, I know enough guys that can pull off a very elaborate joke like that and go, 'Hey, how you doing?' You know, I mean, because Maurice LaMarche and other people like that." And she said, "No, it was him, and he left a number. He wanted you to call him." I was like, geez, why? Why, you know, what does he want to talk to me for? So I go home and I call him back, and there he was, and he said, I just wanted to tell you that I'm a huge fan of your work. And I went, well, I kind of know who you are too, you know? But he was so generous of spirit to even do a thing like that, you know? He wasn't insecure. He was just very, pick up the phone and call a stranger, basically. He got the number from somebody on the set who happened to have my number. And he said, you know what, you ought to come out to California. He said, that's where all the studios are for a guy like you. You'll just go here, there, everywhere, and every day, you know, Disney, Warner's, Fox, da-da-da, da-da-da. And so I finally moved out there, and he said to look him up, and he said, I'll help you get acclimated. And I couldn't believe that, you know, that, I mean, I was a huge fan of his, so I was kind of like, I was kind of tongue-tied about everything. And we did a commercial together. We did an M&M's commercial. And he played the bad guy named Chalky Bar. And he was at a swimming pool, and the sun was coming down. And I didn't have to worry because I won't melt, but Chalky Bar, the wise guy, did. And Tia Carrera was somehow involved in that. She was eating M&Ms, and I jumped into the picture, you know, and she bit off my head or something. I told her about that. I said, you don't know me, but you ate me. You bit off my head. But yeah, Zapp Branigan was based on all these big, dumb disc jockey announcer types when I was growing up. When I was a little kid, these big voices, these guys, you know, this is Alex Dreyer, you know, and I was like, oh, these big voices, and other guys would go, you know, coming to the Worcester Centrum, and I go, what is he just like too cool for school? You know, he just leaves these pauses in there, like his voice is so that valuable. He can't give birth to it. No, I can't. You know, like they were musing. And it was a style, and I said, who talks like this? I could do it. You know, I could do it very well. But I just always used to say, who the hell talks like this? So Phil Hartman, the reason I spoke about him was he was kind of Matt Groening, and everybody wanted him to do Zapp Branigan. And I remember when I was with him, we talked about our love of big dumb announcers, you know, like he loved that too, these big guys, you know, that's why he always did those kind of voices. Okay, you know, and I remember I had just moved to Hollywood, and I woke up in the middle of the night because my wife had woken up in the middle of the night, and she was like, looked upset, and she said, how can you be here? Everybody is just so evil. You know, is there any good people? There's no good people that I've seen so far. And I said, look, if you're looking for them, you'll find them. There's plenty of people that will run right up to you and beat you up for nothing. But it's almost like it's a vibe you give off. You have to look, you know, like you look at certain people and you recognize their energy and it attracts you toward them. And the same thing is going on with them. You were meant to interface somehow. If for no other reason, just to teach each other something. Maybe it's a failure, but you've defined not by your failures. I mean, success never taught me a damn thing. It was all the failures and attempts that taught me every lesson I really should know. And that night, I said, you know what, there are good people. I'll give you an example, Phil Hartman. He's one of the nicest, most generous of spirit guys I ever met in my life. And I said, you just wouldn't believe, like, he's so creative, and he loves creative people. And I said, that's the kind of person that you want to be around. And the next morning, I wake up to find out he was murdered. His wife splattered him in front of their 2 kids. And I was devastated. I was totally devastated. So they didn't want, on Futurama, they didn't want to do Zapp Branigan. And then later on, they just said, do you think you might want to try this? And I said, I don't want to sound exactly like Phil Hartman, like he would have done it, but I will try stuff based on all these big dumb disc jockeys that I grew up listening to. And so that was the voice of Zapp, you know. Careful, let the man. I've made it with a woman. She's a beautiful ship, all right. I'm gonna fly her brains out. Yeah, what an a-hole. I'm applauding him. But I used him, we began to notice that Zapp Branigan kind of resembled the President of the United States. Even with the hair and everything. So it wasn't my idea. Somebody tweeted me and said, "Why don't you make America Branigan?" And I said, "That's brilliant. That's brilliant. I'll do something. Don't worry." And we were trying to figure it out. We just took quotes that existed, that were on record, and just had Zapp say them. All true. "I pay my wife $1 a year and all the dresses she can buy." It sounds like he could have said that, like right out of the pen of the writers on Futurama. "I have a great relationship with the blacks." And it was like too perfect, and I broke the internet. We put a few of them up, and it broke the damn internet that day. It was just ridiculous. Go Fefe. Just anything he said, it's like I'm trying to figure out. He said some stuff recently that I wanted to just have Zapp say. I gotta go look it up. You've been watching the Follies, Putin is a very, very, very nice man. And meanwhile, he was. That's just another way of having fun with the DNA from Futurama. We just did a mobile app. It's a game, and it was #1 on the App Store. And I played it, and it's so cool. I'm not a gamer, but they said, no, you just take your finger wherever you want Fry to wind up and what situation, or you can just take off into space with them. You can do whatever you want. And I was like getting into it, and I said, I don't even care if I win. It's just so cool to me. And all this stuff becomes postmodern art. People used to get on me for reading comic books when I was a kid. I was a geek. It might be cool to be a geek now, but it wasn't 50 years ago, man. The hard guys, would chase you home from school. They just they wanted to kill you or beat you up for some reason. Probably because I was artistic, I drew, and I could play music, and I really didn't fit in. And I felt disenfranchised, so I became my own little best friend. I was like a little entertainment unit. If I want to see something, I'll draw it. If I want to hear something, I'll just do it and say it or sing it. It's a very strange feeling, because at the very same time I thought all of this is for nothing. It's worthless, because nobody would give you props. I'd sit home and I go, these bastards. I'm going to go and show them something that I figured out last night. It's the coolest thing in the world. And I used to show up and I go, hey, listen to this. And I would do something and they'd be like, yeah, and then what happened? And I used to think that it was nothing. It was just worth nothing. But years later, I grew up and I realized how I would have felt if some freak showed up in front of me and started doing, spaceship noises and Stephen Hawking type sounds, and I wouldn't move either. I'd just stand there because I couldn't get my mind around it. I'm not going to give you props. It's like you're going to be a constant and painful reminder of what these clowns never ever would be able to do in their life. And I just didn't realize it back then, why nobody gave a shit, like if you had talent. And when I graduated high school and I went to study music at Berkeley School of Music. It wasn't a college back then. It was just a school. And then I realized I wanted to play music so bad and sing that I just left Berkeley. I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to study it anymore. I wanted to go out and play it. And I made a living with bands at a very young age. And I got drafted in 1970. And, I got the greetings telegram. And there was a draft lottery. It was up to the 300s, like the days of the year. And mine was 30 because of my birth date. And that means they had my name stenciled on a footlocker. I said, I really don't want to go do this, because I knew it was an undeclared war, and eventually the world realized it was an illegal war. So it's not like my patriotism was at stake. I didn't feel that kind of feeling. But it scared the hell out of me, and I couldn't have passed that physical if I wanted to. I could have swallowed balls of tin foil and have it do nothing, or a tablespoon of linseed oil to give you a temporary heart condition. I heard of all the tricks. Like some guy would come in and pretended his arm was lame, and he'd go through all the things, a hearing test and a psychological test. At the end, well, looks like you're out, and they throw a pen at the guy and you go, you're going. So I had flat feet. I had the flattest feet in the world, and I had hypertension. It's kind of like a high blood pressure thing. But anyway, cut to a million years later, turn right, to this very day in the Nixon Library, plays a continuous loop of all the stuff I did as Nixon on Futurama. It's in his library. Somebody must have thought it was funny. And the reason I did it the way I did it is I don't think I sounded like Nixon, although I was well aware of him because I watched the debate on TV when I was a little kid, him and John F. Kennedy. And what the Kennedy's people told the cameraman to do was extreme close-ups, always, on Nixon's face, where you could see hair growing out of his pores, and sweat, and his hair was matted. And there was Kennedy, who looked like a game show host with his perfect hair and teeth. And, it was like the first televised debate, so image suddenly became everything. And then there's Nixon, I want to be president of the United States because, and I said, Mom, he looks like he's going to turn into a werewolf. And that's how I thought of it, because I loved monster movies. I loved when Larry Talbot would instruct people, whatever you hear behind that door, keep it locked. Do not let me out after midnight. And so I thought that's what's happening to Nixon. The reason I want to be president of the United States of America is because Thanks. It's true. Little kids have these great imaginations, and I just couldn't take any of that stuff seriously. It didn't mean anything to me. It's really weird. I've been lucky throughout my life. I've met a lot of my heroes. As a musician, I met Les Paul once, shook his hand, and I met Mel Blanc once, and that was a trip. I had gone to see him in the early 80s at an old wooden hall at Clark University in Worcester, Massachusetts, which is outside of Boston. And there he was, doing a slideshow and a voice display. And I said, there he is. When he came out, I said, there he is, this little old guy waving. And I said, God, Jesus, I hope I get to meet him. And we did, but I blew it. At the end of his thing, he said, thank you very much, everybody, and if you want to he talked like that, if you want to do some autographs, please line up over on this side and I'll sign for you. And I got up and I started body slamming people and checking little kids into the boards like a hockey player. And he went, could you let the little kids go first? Oh, that was so embarrassing. But I did go up there and I did say hi to him, and he signed some stuff for me, and it was so surreal that I was spacing out, I was tripping, and I realized when I sort of got my consciousness back that I was staring down his ear, and I said to myself, I'm staring down Mel Blanc's ear. Can you imagine all the stuff that went in there, and it was percolating in a mind like his, and it came out through here, and I was so excited. I went home and I felt all inspired, but I realized that, I could do impersonations and I could imitate cartoon characters, but in the voice community or in the voice world, you're only going to be a footnote if you're a mimic. There's impressionists that are really, really great, but I wanted to create original voices that no one had heard before. And you know, I waited for that chance. You know, I used to try to create characters of my own on the radio. And I worked with Howard Stern for a while too. Hey Robin, I just farted. You know, I learned a lot there. It was an eye-opener. That was a very cold, tough room. You gotta play, I had to play rough. You see, he used to use me as like an attack dog, like when a guest came in. Listen, Billy, Conan O'Brien's coming in here and I got nothing to talk to him about. So just attack him. It's so against who and what I am, you know, but it was like role-playing. And I had this venomous puppet that looked exactly like the guy who sat in front of me, who wrote like some jokes and one-liners, you know, and passed them. And when Conan came in, he was at risk of being canceled because he just arrived on the scene, and Howard wanted to have a Conan O'Brien cancellation party or something for him, and he was all mad, you know. And then the puppet starts in him, and the minute he walks in there, I go, Conan O'Bye-Bye! You know, and he, what? You know, Conan O'Bye-Bye. And he said, hey, shut up! Like, he was arguing with the puppet. You know, and I think that's where they got the comedy dog from. You know, the insult dog. Yeah, because this puppet was venomous. It was filled with insults. You know, it was crazy. But then when I moved out to California at the behest of one Phil Hartman, it was really, really great to do things. And I also did commercials. I did the Red M&M. I still do. It's like, you know, an icon. You know, like an American icon, I guess. And I auditioned with this other guy. I didn't know him. And he was good. And a few months later, we actually met at the recording session. We had both found out that we were hired for the jobs. And he was great. And one time when I came home from Hollywood, my wife was still living in New York. And I came in and she goes, come here. Before you say anything, come here. Look at this. And there's this show called Oz, the HBO show that was hardcore. It was like the prison show. And she wanted to point out the worst guy in the entire prison is this white, racist, white supremacist, Nazi, just the worst of the worst. And she said, watch this guy. He's no actor. Look at this guy. He's the real deal. He's drawn on from everything from his real self. And I went, I started laughing. She goes, what? I said, I know him. You do? Yeah, he's the yellow M&M. And so one day she came to the recording studio and I said, I'll introduce you to him. And she was coming up the hall like, afraid to meet the guy. And now you just see him everywhere. He stole the first Spider-Man movie as J. Jonah Jameson. And he's in the Farmer's Life insurance, you know, insurance companies, the pedantic, you know, we know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two. And, but him as the yellow M&M is priceless. And you know what he did? He won an Oscar. He won an Oscar for a movie called Whiplash. My pal, you know? And I knew like 25 years ago that he would be a national treasure. I just know it. I sense those things. And there was like a backstage thing and they were interviewing him and they said, what's it like? What's it like to winning an Oscar? You know, how do you feel? And he goes, well, I feel great, but there's, you know, this is one thing, you know, but I get to work with Billy West. I was dying, I was just dying. I was so flattered. It was, you know, I don't really have a sense of entitlement. I never thought that I was a big deal or that I wanted to be a big shit, you know, and I wanted to count money. I never dreamt in a million years that you could be famous or make money. I was just dying to bring something to the table. That was my motive. And I still try to remain pure in the face of all the junk, you know, somebody laughing while they're stealing your shoes, you know, what are you gonna do? like you gotta stand up, you know. And then I would role play, and I go, hold on. The guy would say, listen, you know, you guys are a dime a dozen. You're replaceable. I'm gonna pretend I didn't hear that, you know. And I role play. I become this like counter asshole. It was just fun to do, but I felt like, ooh, icky. So I guess at this point I could take questions from anybody that's curious about this craft. I know a lot of people that I've talked to want to do like voiceovers and yes.
So Futurama as a show,
Mm-hmm.
I mean everyone loves it, but especially recently, it's become like a meme gold mine.
Fox didn't see it that way. You know what they did? They had a promo one time, and it said, Fox Sunday night, 7 p.m. Futurama, followed by a new Malcolm in the Middle at 7:30. And at 8, an all-new Simpsons, followed by a new episode of King of the Hill. Remember, the fun begins at 7:30. Really, seriously, they did that. I was like, they had a strange relationship with that show. And I just thought that, you know, that the show was too good to not be on TV. And so, you know, I'll like I said, I'll take any little DNA from the show. We just recently did that project, and we read a live episode at the Avalon Theater in Los Angeles, and everybody came out. It was so fun. They were all like, we were all friends. We all sort of knew each other, even though we didn't, you know. But the show cast members are kind of like family, you know. We always wind up working together on all other things that don't have anything to do with The Simpsons. John DiMaggio told the producers of the show to put me on Adventure Time. And what they did, they wrote it where Jake was sounding like a little bit like Bender, and the characters I did sounded a little like Fry and the Professor, and I said, are they really? They want to do this? just do it, just do it. And it was nice of them. So yeah, and I have a couple of new things that I've been working on for over a year. They're going to be announced soon, and they're going to be on Netflix. You know, it was announced a while back that Matt Groening had a deal with Netflix, and there's something else. I don't think it's Futurama, though. I think he's doing a whole new show, which will be fantastic, you know. Yes. I know you.
Yeah, I was here the other day.
You were here the other day.
Okay.
Are you going to ask me the same question?
No. I just want to know, it sounds like you've done a range of different characters over the years. Was there ever an iconic cartoon character that you wish you could have done the voice for?
No, not really, because I stand in appreciation of what other craftspeople, what other artisans do. You know, I'm in awe. Like Seth MacFarlane is very facile and very versatile, and I admire how he jumps around like that. I think that's my kind of stuff. I mean, I enjoy that, but I didn't want to be that. I didn't want to do that. I never like lusted after that. He's no good. I could do better than that. The guys who say, I can do better than that are the ones who attack me on the internet, you know. Yeah, you're nothing. I used to think you were funny. You're no longer funny. Thanks for that update. Yes, sir.
I just want to say, huge fan of your work on Futurama.
Thanks.
Good stuff. And so when it came to recording the voices, was it just by yourself in the room, or were you like the other cast members?
No, mostly we recorded as an ensemble. Katie was there next to me, and there was Phil Lamar, Dave Herman, Maurice LaMarche, Lauren Tom, Tress McNeil, you know, and John DiMaggio. And we used to record, because they need that vibe. You should just hear the shit that goes down when the mics aren't on, you know, like when they just stop and take a break to get to another scene or something, and we just started riffing about whatever happened that day or whatever movie came out, and it was a whole comedy album, you know, because these people are really capable of, like, replicating anything that you want to talk about. Yes. Yeah, you?
So, what was it like working on Space Jam?
Oh, wow. It's the 20th anniversary. Space Jam. I played Bugs and I played Elmer Fudd in that, and
And I got to work with Michael Jordan, too, Doc. The closest thing to a religious figure that we have. And there's a final word. Mwah! Goodbye.
Yes.
Actually, regarding that question involving your character you wanted to play, I actually heard rumors you wanted to play Bugs Bunny in Back in Action, but you were replaced by some named Joe.
Yeah.
Because even though Dante wanted to make it faithful to Looney Tunes, I heard rumors that Warner Brothers wouldn't give him any creative control. It would cause the movie to suffer. Is that true?
I don't know what went on, but I did do Elmer Fudd in that movie, reluctantly, because I had to be told that I wasn't going to be doing Bugs. And between you and me and the lamppost, I didn't create that character, so I didn't have this, like, covetous feeling about it. No one else can do this! You know, I mean, because I didn't create it, so I didn't give a dismal damn who did what. I had a job, you know? And Elmer Fudd was the one who got the reviews, you know, like, unbelievable. Elmer Fudd sounded exactly like the guy that did it, and that wasn't Mel Blanc, that was Arthur Q. Bryan. But I had to be told, and this guy meets me for dinner, he goes,
You were, conveniently lied to?
and I was like, I got so angry, and they said,
But we want you to do Elmer Fudd, though.
and I said, how about no? What if I say no? I don't need the money. You know, I just felt like I wanted to make somebody squirm. That's all I wanted to do because of how they handle things. If they only knew, I could care less if I have a starring role or not. That's not how I'm made, you know? I wasn't born like that. I just had a job. I have immigrant mentality. It's like I'll audition for anything. If you want to work, you got to audition. And sometimes you don't get the edgy project and a cool project. Sometimes you get like you're the voice of a talking toilet or something in a commercial. Well, you know, it's all part of the craft. I happen to think that's very cool. It's like I used to sit there and I'd go, I wonder what toilets think all day. Oh, here comes another asshole. Yes.
For someone going into it, like, what were some of your favorite things, like, growing up, like, to watching, getting inspiration from, and what are some best ways to actually learn to do voices that are both great and funny, but don't just, like, play on, like, one, like, tone or certain
Let's see. I love the comedians of the day. I'm a product of the era I grew up in, as much as I try to rebel against it. But you're going to find out. You know, it's like the older you get, you have to keep doing battle with the guy you swore you would never be. It's true, you'll find out. Hey, that's a good-looking rocking chair. You know, and meanwhile, if it was 30 or 40 years earlier, I was like, you know, doing drugs, and I was an alkie, and I was big trouble. I was cross-addicted. High voltage, folks. Yes?
You said earlier that they asked you to do every voice on, well, a lot of the voices on Futurama except for Fry. How did you end up getting Fry's voice?
They had a couple of other people playing Fry and Leela, and for some reason it wasn't working out. So they brought Katie Seagal in, and originally I did audition for Fry, and they just went back and said, can you do this? And I said, yeah. And he said, it's just really unique and everything, and they're raving. I said, that's exactly what I sounded like when I was 25. I was whiny and complainy and nasally, and you know, I played in bands. I broke a string. Now what the am I gonna do? You know, just everything was like, yeah. What do you mean we're not gonna get paid tonight? You know, because club owners would do that on Friday night. We'd send the bravest guy in the band to go up and confront the guy. Okay, so we're all set, we're all packed up, and you know, that awkward moment, and the guy says, we didn't do very well this evening. You know, but they were like mob types. Okay. All right. You know, there was nothing you could do about it. And, but anyway, let's see. What else, did you have a second part of that, or I'm just saying?
The second part of that, like, what is, like, a good way to create a unique voice without, like, falling into, like, a stereotype or something that's been done before? Like, I've seen that, like, repetition, like, especially with some stuff from Farland, of course, like, like Stan and Peter, even though they have somewhat similar, like some different tones, they also have like a similar like voice recognition to it.
Well, you know, certainly that's not the intention. I mean, you want to keep everything as pure and separated as you possibly can. I mean, I always tried to do that, but I also needed to sound true. I needed I needed to, you know, make every one of these characters sound like he could be a real person and not a cartoon. Matt Groening used to say The Simpsons is a cartoon and Futurama is real to him. You know, like they were real people that actually existed. And I think, and also cartoons are a work in progress. If you listen to episode 1 or 2 of The Simpsons, it sounds nothing like what they sound like. Homer was like, you know, barking like a dog almost. Yes, sir.
Hey, so I have a question. I just wanted to ask, how did you end up getting into voice acting? First, like, how did you go from being a starting artist essentially to being able to make the transition into be your day job essentially? And what advice would you have for someone that, like, I'm 26 now, I've always been fascinated with voice acting. I'm just like trying to find pathways to take.
Well, all I can tell you is when I started, there was no signpost, there was no... If you even said something like that to somebody, they'd want to put you in 4-point restriction. What? Say that again? You know, a voice actor? You know, no one got it, no one gave a dismal damn about it, but it was something I needed to do. Hello. Yeah. Can I go a little longer? Thank you. She's just trying to keep me out of trouble. Because when you talk too long, you can sometimes get in trouble. What was I saying? I was. You were talking about being 26 and you want to get in the business. Okay, being any kind of actor or performer, it's a business. Let's see. It's a business where it's like 95% unemployment. There's your odds. So you got to be pretty tough, and you got to be. It's cold out there alone. You know, I know you know that to certain degrees as you come through life. It's like sometimes you got to, like you're on your own. You know, maybe your friends don't want to support you on certain things. It's like, well, I got to go against that. I have to be true to myself. But I just came in and I was armed with an arsenal of noises and voices. There were no teachers, there were no schools. Now there's everything. And plus there's YouTube. You can actually sit down. If YouTube existed or a cell phone like this existed when I was 28 or 25, you know, it would have been incredible to dial up a film that I always wanted to see. So whenever I saw a movie, I'd have to remember it, like frame by frame in my mind, and remember note by note what the voices sounded like and the dialogue. That's how I learned. But, you know, it's, the business needs you, because show business never shrinks. It never downsizes. It only gets bigger. It's the only business in the world, really, in that regard, that keeps getting bigger and bigger. And so in other words, there's more room for creative and people, technical people. You know, hell, I mean, if you get a job in show business, I mean, you don't have to be the star, you don't have to be in the spotlight. If you can cook gourmet meals, you can have a job in show business. If you can build things like a carpenter, you know, you could get a job in show business. If you could design clothes, you can get a job. You don't have to be, or say you're a technician and you're brilliant at art and you have to do everything by computer. That's certainly not the way they did it in the old days, but there's a job there, and they have unions and pensions and insurance plans, you know what I mean? It's like you can't get that guarantee in the real world. You get out of college and it's like, okay, so what's with you? What's your story? Well, I have an MBA. Good, get in that hole and dig. You know, it's basically that. Here, put on this hat. You know, oh, and don't get no big ideas about making a really tidy living, you know. There's no promises anymore. Everything is gone. So it kills me to see people that prepare for stuff in life that isn't going to be there to receive them. It's like dirty, you know? And they're broken promises, but it doesn't mean you're supposed to, you know, dry up like an old fig and quit life. It motivates you even more, and you suddenly find yourself wanting to be elevated in a whole nother way you never thought of. Like, you might wind up to be a script writer while on the way of trying to be a voice guy. Do you know what I mean? It's like the future's so unwritten. You have no idea, dude. You know, it's like tomorrow you could meet somebody that changes your entire life overnight. And that's why they built Hollywood, you know. It's like some things like that were meant to happen. You shake hands with some guy and he remembers you, and he calls a friend of his, and somebody calls you and you do an audition, and bang, you know, suddenly you're in a whole new world. It goes for anybody who's here. Your future is so unwritten, you know. It's like it keeps you from sweating about things, because there's a lot that was meant to happen because you're who you are. You're you, and it's all about energy. You know, it's like, I think most people in this room, I recognize your energy because you're into the arts, you're into, you know, comics and art and music and voices, and, you know, I recognize it. Yes?
What are some qualities that a good voice actor needs to have? Like, what's the foundation you should start with?
Let's see. You got to be really willing to give a director exactly what they're looking for, and then when you think he's pleased, you try some other things to see if he'll flip out. You know, and I always try stuff. Sometimes it winds up in the garbage, and sometimes they'll go, "We're leaving that in." You know, but you have to have confidence in yourself, and you have to respect everybody. Really, I had this whole thing about I wanted to be the easiest part of somebody's day. You know, without saying it, I would like project that. I'd say, look, I just want to be the easiest part of your day, and I'll get out of here. I'm not going to hang around and be needy, you know. And it shows that you're not going to be a pain in their neck, because they've got to answer to a slew of other people that are pressuring them. And you know, you have to imagine that the people that are telling you what to do are being majorly told what to do by a committee from on high. So I never wanted to give anyone a hard time or argue an artistic point. You know, that's not your job. You do what a director tells you to do, and then you bring fire, and then you show them some more hell when they say, "What are you thinking? You got anything?" And, yeah, I have a few thoughts, you know, and then it could blow them sky high, and they will always call you. It's those kinds of things. You know what I would say to you is, just walk around your house and just read out loud. Read things. It doesn't even matter if you stumble, or, and then read it as another type of person. Read it as an old biddy, or an old man, or read it as a military guy who's stiff, you know, like he just got out of Camp Lejeune. Yes, sir! You know, that's how you come out of yourself. Really, that's how you come out of yourself. And you can't feel stupid. If someone's watching you and you're unable to do it, you're going to have a hard time. You've got to be able to stand and deliver in a room full of this committee behind some glass, you know, ordering lunch and barely paying attention to you. It's really weird. I came in one time and I used to joke around. They said, "So what do you like to do? What do you usually do?" And I said, "Well, I can do weather." And I went, "Hi, my name is Gloria, and I'm a hurricane." Hi, Gloria. Grateful to be here. I'd like you to meet my enabler, warm water. You know, and one guy, stiff as a board, looks over and he goes, "Do you do any other forms of weather?" You know, so it's like, you're going to get a kick on the teeth by certain types of people, but you can't let it daunt you. You have to be tougher than that. And you also have to have maturity to not even lower yourself to try to figure out a way to please someone like that. You just go, "Look, I did my best. I do what I do. Thank you for seeing me." Yeah, how about you?
What's the hardest conversation you ever had with yourself in two different voices?
Oh God, I can't remember. But I do remember not understanding something as I was reading it. I mean, I thought I understood the character of Fry pretty well. I mean, when I was his age, I knew that the way I wanted to play that character, especially when he was around Leela, is in my own life, I was a real project for a girl. You know, and I know that women like projects, so I thought Fry's going to be a major project for this woman. And then it endears, you know, he's flawed, and all the best characters are flawed in various ways. But I remember one episode I didn't understand the dialogue. It was like, "Hey Fry, I heard beer makes you stupid," or something like that, and he goes,
No, it doesn't.
and I went to David Cohen, I said, "David, no, it doesn't. Please read it as written." Okay, I'll be back for the $800 fix-it fee or whatever, you know. And then I saw it on TV. I finally saw it on TV and I was like, ah! I didn't get it. And it was perfect for Fry because he didn't understand what he was saying, and that was the best acting I ever did in my life. Thank you.